Welcome. Welcome to Celebrate Aging. Here at Emmanuel Community, my name is Vicki Marthaler, and I'm your hostess today as we come to learn a little bit more about a word that's out in the community that you've probably heard a little bit more of and wondering what exactly is that all about. It's a word called palliative care. It's becoming quite the interesting word, and people are asking about it more and finding that it is a service and something that's needed in the community. Palliative care is about care at the end of someone's life, especially if they have a diagnosis of cancer or Alzheimer's or anything terminal like that, Parkinson's. When you come to the end of your life, palliative care comes from the word palliate, which means to ease, And doctors will ask people questions like, tell me about the care that you would like to receive when the medications are not available anymore, or that science isn't providing a way to cure or to stop. What is it that you would like? What is it that you would expect from people to care for you and be with you throughout all the days of your life, even as your life is ending? Well, there's a project in town called the Palliative Care Community, and we've been meeting and talking about that. And a part of that is also for a person to fill out a form. I'm sure a doctor has mentioned it to you before, like a living will, or it's escaping me now what it's called. It's like a health directive. It's a health directive. Doctors want to know how you view your final days, if in fact you get to choose. And so they ask about feeding tubes. They ask about extraordinary measures. They ask about CPR. And there's a lot of things that it's good for us to deliberately and intentionally think about, so that we can tell our doctors, and we can also tell our families and those who care about us how indeed we would want to be cared for throughout all the days of our life, even if we are dying. And so I'd like to share with you two stories, and they're based on, I call them vignettes, because they're based on people that I have come across in my ministry here at Emmanuel, people who I think who have very deliberately and intentionally thought about their life and about the diagnosis they're living with, how they have shared it with the people here at Emmanuel who have cared for them, shared it with their doctors, so that we could continue to surround them in a palliative way, to ease them, to bring them comfort, to bring them peace, even in the last days of their life. So I'm going to start with the first story. And I wrote it out so I won't do quite so much rambling. And we're going to call this wonderful resident Sally. Sally was 80 years old, widowed without children, and her diabetes had advanced to the point of dialysis 3 times a week. Sally was also sassy in that good way. Her sense of humor kept those about her smiling. Her strength, though, was failing, so she relied on a wheelchair to get from one point to another. Dialysis was her lifeline, and when she would return to the nursing home after dialysis, she would sleep for 12 hours straight. The next day would be the best day, and the second day following dialysis would be okay. But by the time the third day came around, Sally knew that her body needed to be cleansed of the toxins that were building up in her system. Sally was a resident of the nursing home for 2 years. She came when it was necessary to undergo the routine of dialysis to sustain her life. Now, 2 years later, Sally was tired. She had felt much like a yo-yo, swinging down and then swinging up with her strength and her emotions. Sally came to consider the nursing staff her family, and especially her nurse as her best friend. Sally confided in her nurse that she was giving much consideration to ending the dialysis. She was not a candidate for surgery. Diabetes was also affecting the circulation in her toes and feet, which had resulted in the doctor talking about possible amputation. The great days were leveling into good days, and the effort to bounce back and forth to dialysis was becoming quite a chore. One day, when the hot summer days gave way to cool autumn breeze, Sally made a decision. She wanted to terminate dialysis. She had discussed this choice with her knowledgeable doctor, her loving nurse, and her one long-distance cousin. Sally was at peace with her decision and understood the outcome of letting nature take its course. Unfortunately, the nursing home staff struggled with Sally's decision, as we all do when we love and care for someone. But they loved and cared Sally enough to honor her choice. And for the next 5 days, they stood with her, cared for her, showing great love and devotion. Sally died peacefully in her own bed, in her own favorite jammies, surrounded by the love of those who cared for her. The second story is about a gentleman named Jim. At a very tender age, in his late 40s, Jim was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. His wife and children were devastated by the diagnosis, but they entered the fight with determination and grit. For many years, they took very great care of Jim at home, but as the disease robbed him more and more of his abilities, the decision was made to bring him to a care facility. As he came, he was also diagnosed with Parkinson's, and the double whammy of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's left him in a very complicated situation. Movement was limited. When he was able to walk, it was often jerky and painful. Soon, Jim was wheelchair-bound, and now in a care facility for over 5 years, he is in total care. He no longer speaks. His limbs move only with Parkinson's spasms. He has to be fed and repositioned every 2 hours, 24/7. His responses are limited to eye contact and an occasional smile. His children are now married, having families of their own. And it seems that Jeff has a 3-month-old grandchild that can do more things than he can. The family has talked much about his future and scenarios, and the decision has been made that they want to keep Jim comfortable. There will be no aggressive treatments, and the family does wish for nature to take its course, even if pneumonia is a diagnosis. The family chooses for Jim to be kept comfortable in any situation, to be clean and provided oxygen, cool compresses, pain medications, a hand to hold, and a calming voice to bring assurance. These are just 2 stories that I wanted to share with you today. And as we do think about our life, we are all in that grand congregation of people who will eventually face the end of their days. Doctors and nurses and caregivers and family want to honor your choices. I encourage you to deliberately and intentionally think about the care you'd like to receive and how you would like to end your days. This is Vicki the chaplain at Emmanuel Nursing Home, wishing you the very best.